Dr. Elena Vasquez had always believed that finding evidence of alien life would be humanity's greatest triumph, until she realized they were standing in a graveyard that stretched across the entire galaxy. The silence was the first thing that struck Dr. Elena Vasquez as her boots touched the crystalline surface of Kepler 442c. After 18 months of hyperspace travel aboard the research vessel Prometheus, the absence of any electromagnetic chatter from this world felt like a physical weight pressing against her chest. Her breath fogged the visor of her environmental suit as she gazed across the vast necropolis stretching to the horizon. "My God," whispered Dr. James Chun through the comm system, his voice barely audible over the gentle hum of their life support systems. "Look at the scope of this place." Elena adjusted her scanner and watched the holographic display materialize before her eyes. The ruins extended for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Towering spires of unknown metal that had resisted corrosion for millennia, geometric patterns carved into the planet's surface that could only be seen from orbit, and structures so alien that her mind struggled to categorize them as buildings at all. This was humanity's 7th archaeological expedition to a dead world, but Kepler 442c dwarfed all previous discoveries. The Kepler Archaeological Survey had been Elena's brainchild, born from humanity's desperate need to understand why every other civilization in the galaxy had simply vanished. Radio telescopes had detected the signatures of advanced technology across thousands of systems, but when humanity finally achieved faster-than-light travel, they found only graveyards. "Elena, you need to see this," called Dr. Sarah Okafor from a massive archway carved from what appeared to be compressed starlight. The material pulsed with a faint inner luminescence that their instruments couldn't explain. Sarah's expertise in Zen linguistics had proven invaluable on previous expeditions, but Elena could hear something different in her colleague's voice now, a tremor that hadn't been there before. Elena made her way across the uneven terrain, noting how their footsteps seemed to echo despite the thin atmosphere. The planet's twin suns cast elongated shadows that moved like living things, creating an unsettling optical illusion that made her stomach clench with unease. "What have you found?" Elena asked, joining Sarah beneath the towering arch. The structure rose nearly 50 meters above them, its surface covered in intricate symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed peripherally. "It's not what I found," Sarah replied, her scanner trembling in her gloved hands. "It's what I've translated." "Elena, these symbols aren't random decorative elements. They're a warning." Elena felt her pulse quicken. In 7 expeditions across 7 worlds, they had discovered technological marvels, artistic achievements that brought tears to their eyes, and evidence of civilizations that had spanned star systems. But they had never found anything resembling a warning. What kind of warning? Elena asked, though part of her already dreaded the answer. Sarah's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "It says, 'The silence comes for all who reach too far. We were the 6th to understand. You who read this will be the 7th. The words hung in the recycled air of Elena's helmet, like a physical presence. She stared at the symbols, watching them pulse with that ethereal light, and felt something cold settle in her chest that had nothing to do with the planet's frigid temperature. "James, Marcus," Elena called to the other members of their 4-person team. "Converge on our position immediately." Dr. Marcus Webb, their physicist and technology specialist, emerged from behind a cluster of spiral towers that defied every principle of structural engineering he understood. His usually calm demeanor seemed strained as he approached. "Elena, I've been analyzing the energy signatures from these structures," Marcus said, his scientific training unable to completely mask anxiety in his voice. "The technology here is at least 50,000 years more advanced than anything we've encountered on the other dead worlds. Yet the civilization died out approximately the same time as all the others, roughly 100,000 years ago." Elena processed this information while staring at Sarah's translation. 7 expeditions, 7 dead worlds, 7 extinct civilizations, each more advanced than the last, yet all sharing the same mysterious fate. And now, if Sarah's translation was accurate, they had found evidence that at least one species had been aware of some kind of pattern. "Sarah, are you certain about this translation?" Elena asked, though she could see the certainty written in her colleague's body language. "I've checked it 17 times, Sarah replied. The linguistic patterns are consistent with warning texts we've found in human cultures. The grammatical structures, the urgency markers, even the way the symbols are arranged for maximum visual impact. This isn't speculation. Elena, this is a deliberate message left for whoever came after them. The four scientists stood in silence beneath the alien arch, each processing the implications in their own way. Elena found herself thinking about Earth, about the 7 billion people who had celebrated when the Prometheus had launched with such hope and excitement. Humanity had finally joined the community of spacefaring civilizations. They had finally proven they weren't alone in the universe. Except they were alone, utterly, completely, and perhaps temporarily alone. We need to document everything, Elena said finally, her training overriding her growing sense of dread. Every symbol, every structure, every energy reading. If we're going to understand what happened here, what happened to all of them, we need data. As the team dispersed to begin their methodical survey, Elena remained beneath the arch, staring at the symbols that spelled out humanity's potential doom. The twin suns continued their slow dance across the alien sky, casting shadows that seemed to whisper secrets she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. 3 days into their survey of Kepler 442c, Elena's team had cataloged over 2,000 distinct structures, each more impossible than the last. The civilization that had built this necropolis had clearly mastered physics in ways that made human science look like cave paintings. Yet they were gone, just like all the others. Elena stood in what Sarah had identified as a central plaza, watching Marcus attempt to interface with a crystalline monolith that hummed with barely contained energy. His portable quantum computer struggled to process the alien data streams flowing through the structure's core. Any progress? Elena asked, though Marcus's frustrated body language already provided the answer. It's like trying to read a symphony with a tuning fork, Marcus replied, wiping condensation from his visor. The information density is incredible, but every time I think I'm making progress, the patterns shift. It's almost as if the system is actively resisting our attempts to understand it. James emerged from a nearby building that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the 3 they were familiar with. His geological surveys had produced equally disturbing results. Elena, we need to talk, he said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. What is it now? Elena asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted another revelation that would shake her understanding of reality. I've been analyzing the mineral composition of the construction materials, James said, pulling up a holographic display of his findings. The isotopic ratios are wrong. Not unusual. Wrong. These materials didn't form naturally anywhere in this galaxy. They're artificial, created through processes that would require energy outputs equivalent to harnessing entire stars. Sarah looked up from her translation work on a nearby wall covered in the flowing script they had begun calling the language of warnings. That's consistent with what I'm finding here, she said. This civilization didn't just reach the stars. They were reshaping matter at the subatomic level. They had achieved what we would consider technological godhood. Elena felt a familiar chill that had become her constant companion since arriving on this world. And yet they're gone, she said quietly, just like the others. Not just gone, Sarah corrected, her voice hollow. According to these inscriptions, they saw it coming. They knew they were going to die, and they knew why. The team gathered around Sarah as she highlighted a section of text that covered nearly 30 square meters of metallic wall. The symbols seemed to writhe under their lights, creating an optical illusion that made Elena's eyes water. This section is different from a warning we found on the first day, Sarah explained. This is more detailed. It's describing something they call the Convergence, a point where civilizations reach a certain level of technological advancement and then encounter something that destroys them. What kind of something? Marcus asked, though his scientific skepticism was clearly warring with the evidence surrounding them. That's where the translation becomes difficult, Sarah admitted. The concepts they're using don't have direct equivalents in human language, but the closest interpretation would be that they discovered they weren't alone in the universe, and that discovery killed them. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. What do you mean? According to this text, when a civilization reaches sufficient technological sophistication to truly explore the galaxy, they inevitably make contact with something that has been waiting for them, something that judges whether they're worthy to continue existing. James laughed, but it was a sound devoid of humor. That's impossible. We've surveyed thousands of systems. If there was some kind of galactic civilization out there judging species, we would have detected them by now. Would we? Marcus asked quietly. We're barely a Type 1 civilization on the Kardashev scale. If something out there operates at Type 3 levels or beyond, we might be as incapable of detecting them as ants are of understanding our internet infrastructure. Elena stared at the alien text, her mind racing through the implications. 7 dead worlds, 7 extinct civilizations, 7 warnings about something that comes for those who reach too far. And now they were here, humanity's first deep space archaeological expedition, potentially walking the same path. Sarah, is there anything else? Elena asked. Any indication of what this convergence actually involves? Sarah nodded grimly. There's a final section here. It's badly degraded, but I can make out enough to get the general meaning. It says that the convergence begins with a test. Civilizations that pass are allowed to continue existing. Those that fail are exterminated. Elena finished. Worse than that, Sarah replied. According to this, failure results in what they call temporal excision, complete removal from the timeline, not just death, but erasure from existence itself, as if they had never been. The 4 scientists stood in the alien plaza as the implications sank in, around them. The impossible structures of a dead civilization hummed with residual energy, testament to achievements that had ultimately meant nothing when faced with some cosmic judgment. Elena's communication device chirped with an incoming message from the Prometheus. Captain Rivera's voice crackled through the static. Dr. Vasquez, we received an urgent transmission from Earth. The Deep Space Monitoring Array has detected massive energy signatures approaching from the galactic core. ETA approximately 6 months. Elena's hands began to shake as she processed the captain's words. 6 months. The same amount of time it would take their expedition to return to Earth, assuming they left immediately. Captain, what's the nature of these energy signatures? Elena asked, though she was already beginning to suspect the answer. Unknown, but Dr. Chun, they're unlike anything in our databases. The energy output is consistent with structures the size of small moons, and they're heading directly for our solar system. Elena looked at her team, seeing her own horrified realization reflected in their faces. They had come to the stars seeking answers about the fate of galactic civilization. Instead, they had found evidence that their own judgment day was approaching. The silence of the dead world suddenly felt less like peace and more like a preview of humanity's future. Elena stared at the alien warning text, understanding with crystalline clarity that their expedition had not been a journey of discovery. It had been humanity's final exam, and they were about to learn whether they had passed or failed. The journey back to the Prometheus took place in haunted silence. Elena's team moved through the alien necropolis like sleepwalkers, each consumed by the magnitude of their discovery. The weight of potentially being the last witnesses to billions of years of galactic history pressed down on them with every step. Once aboard their ship, Elena called for an immediate senior staff meeting. Captain Rivera, a weathered woman who had spent 30 years in deep space, listened with growing pale complexity as Elena presented their findings. The ship's other department heads, Dr. Lisa Park from Xenobiology, Commander Torres from Tactical, and Chief Engineer Rodriguez, sat in stunned silence as the implications became clear. You're telling me, Captain Rivera said slowly, that every advanced civilization in the galaxy has been systematically destroyed by some kind of cosmic judge, and these energy signatures heading toward Earth represent our own judgment day? That appears to be the case, Elena replied, her voice steadier than she felt. The archaeological evidence is consistent across all 7 sites we've investigated. Each civilization reached approximately the same level of technological development before encountering what they called the convergence. None survived. Commander Torres, whose military training made him naturally skeptical of threats he couldn't quantify, leaned forward. Dr. Vasquez, with respect, isn't it possible you're interpreting these alien texts through the lens of your own fears? Ancient civilizations often had apocalyptic myths that didn't reflect reality. Sarah pulled up her translation matrices on the conference room's main display. "Commander, I understand your skepticism, but look at this linguistic analysis. The warning texts we found aren't mythological or religious in nature. They're technical documentation. These civilizations were trying to leave instruction manuals for survival." Elena felt a chill as she realized the truth of Sarah's observation. "They weren't just warning us," she said quietly. "They were trying to teach us how to pass the test." The room fell silent as this revelation sank in. Elena pulled up her compiled data from all 7 expeditions, looking for patterns they had missed. The dead worlds weren't random graveyards. They were a curriculum, each one teaching subsequent civilizations about the nature of the threat they would face. "Dr. Park," Elena said, turning to the xenobiologist, "you've been analyzing the biological remains we found. What have you discovered about the actual extinction events?" Dr. Park's usually composed demeanor cracked slightly. "The biological evidence is disturbing. Each civilization appears to have died simultaneously across their entire species. Not gradually, not through war or disease, but all at once. Complete population termination within a time frame measured in minutes, not years." Chief Engineer Rodriguez raised his hand tentatively. "How is that even possible? We're talking about civilizations that span multiple star systems. Even if you could deploy some kind of weapon simultaneously across interstellar distances, the coordination required would be beyond anything we can comprehend," Elena finished. "Which brings us back to the central question. What are we dealing with?" Marcus had been quietly running calculations on his personal tablet throughout the meeting. Now he looked up with an expression of barely controlled terror. "I've been analyzing the energy signatures that Earth detected," he said. "If my calculations are correct, we're not dealing with ships or weapons in any conventional sense. We're dealing with entities that exist partially outside our normal space-time continuum." Captain Rivera stood and began pacing, a habit Elena had noticed whenever the captain encountered problems that couldn't be solved through standard protocols. "Recommendations, people. We have 6 months to get back to Earth and somehow prepare humanity for contact with beings that have systematically exterminated every other intelligent species in the galaxy. How do we even begin to address something like this?" Elena stared at the compiled warnings from 7 dead civilizations, searching for any clue that might help humanity survive what was coming. Then she noticed something she had missed before, a pattern in the linguistic structures that suggested the warnings weren't just describing the threat, but providing specific instructions. "Sarah," Elena said urgently, "look at the grammatical patterns in the warning texts. Are they consistent with instructional formats?" Sarah's eyes widened as she began analyzing the data with fresh perspective. "You're right," she breathed. "These aren't just warnings, they're protocols. Each civilization that faced the convergence left detailed instructions for how subsequent species might survive the encounter." Elena felt the first stirring of hope since discovering the alien warnings. What did the instructions say? Sarah worked frantically with her translation algorithms, cross-referencing linguistic patterns from all 7 sites. "The core message is consistent across all civilizations," she said. "The entities that conduct a convergence aren't interested in destroying intelligent life. They're interested in evolution. They're testing each species to see if they've developed beyond certain destructive patterns that apparently characterize young civilizations." "What kind of patterns?" Commander Torres asked. "Tribalism, resource competition, the tendency to see existence as a zero-sum game," Sarah replied, her voice gaining strength as she found more of the pattern. "According to these texts, civilizations that reach technological maturity while maintaining these characteristics are considered evolutionary dead ends. But those that transcend these limitations are allowed to continue." Elena felt pieces of a vast puzzle clicking into place. "It's not about our technology," she realized. "It's about our consciousness. They're not judging our ability to build starships or harness energy. They're judging our worthiness to join whatever community exists beyond our current understanding." Captain Rivera stopped pacing. "So, how do we prepare humanity for this test?" Elena looked at her team, seeing determination replacing despair in their faces. "We have 6 months and the accumulated wisdom of 7 dead civilizations," she said. We study everything these species learned about the convergence, and we figure out what humanity needs to become to survive it. The meeting ended with assignments distributed among the senior staff, but Elena remained in the conference room, staring at the alien text that had transformed from warnings into humanity's only hope for survival. Outside the viewports, the stars seemed different now. Not distant points of light, but markers of civilizations that had faced the same test humanity was about to encounter. Elena began composing her transmission to Earth, knowing that her words might be the most important message in human history. 6 months to evolve beyond millions of years of evolutionary programming. 6 months to prove that humanity deserved to continue existing. The silence of space had never felt so loud. The transmission reached Earth 17 days later, sparking the largest coordinated effort in human history. Elena watched through quantum-encrypted feeds as every government institution and organization on the planet mobilized around a single objective, preparing humanity for judgment by entities that existed beyond their understanding of reality itself. Dr. Amanda Chun, Elena's former colleague, and now director of the Global Convergence Response Initiative, appeared on the main display of the Prometheus briefing room. Behind her, Elena could see the familiar chaos of the Emergency Command Center that had been established in Geneva. Elena, your archaeological data has been distributed to every major research facility on the planet, Dr. Chin reported. We have teams working around the clock to understand the protocols left by the extinct civilizations, but we're facing a problem. Elena leaned forward, dreading what she was about to hear. What kind of problem? The instructions are clear about what needs to change in human consciousness, but they don't explain how to achieve that change on a species-wide level in 6 months. We're talking about evolutionary leaps that normally take millennia. Sarah, who had been refining her translations during the 3 weeks since their departure from Kepler 442c, interrupted. Dr. Chun, I've found additional text fragments that might be relevant. Several civilizations mention something they call the catalyst, some kind of technology or process that can accelerate consciousness evolution. Elena felt her pulse quicken. What kind of technology? That's what we're trying to figure out, Sarah replied. The descriptions are extremely technical, involving quantum consciousness interfaces, and what appears to be direct neural networking on a planetary scale. But Elena, if I'm translating this correctly, the technology wasn't developed by the extinct civilizations. It was provided by the entities conducting the convergence. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. You're saying the test includes giving civilizations the tools they need to evolve? It appears so, Sarah confirmed. But there's a catch. The catalyst technology only works if the civilization is genuinely ready to transcend their destructive patterns. If they try to use it while still driven by competition and tribalism, the result is extinction. Elena finished grimly. Dr. Chen's image flickered as quantum interference disrupted the transmission. When it stabilized, Elena could see the strain on her colleague's face. Elena, we've detected the approaching entities more clearly now. They're not ships in any conventional sense. They appear to be conscious structures the size of small planets, and they're slowing down as they approach our solar system. Elena exchanged glances with her team. The entities were taking their time, studying humanity just as humanity was trying to understand them. How long before they arrive? Based on current deceleration patterns, approximately 4 months. But Elena, that's not the most disturbing part. We've detected similar energy signatures emerging from hyperspace at 17 other systems, all locations where we know intelligent civilizations exist. The room fell silent as the magnitude of this revelation sank in. Elena stared at the tactical display, showing the locations of the emerging entities. They're conducting multiple convergences simultaneously, she realized. This isn't just about humanity. It's a galactic-wide evaluation. Marcus had been analyzing the quantum signatures of the approaching entities using data fed from Earth's deep space arrays. Elena, look at these energy patterns, he said, highlighting specific wavelengths on his display. These entities aren't just technologically advanced. They're operating at levels that suggest they might be transcended civilizations themselves, species that pass previous convergences and evolve beyond anything we can currently comprehend. Elena felt the pieces of the puzzle finally clicking into place. The convergence isn't a judgment by some external force, she said slowly. It's an evaluation by civilizations that have already transcended their destructive patterns. They're trying to help other species evolve to join them, but only if those species are truly ready. Sarah nodded excitedly. That explains the instruction text. Previous civilizations that failed the convergence left detailed protocols because they understood the entities weren't malevolent. They were trying to help, but couldn't allow dangerous civilizations to advance without proper evolution. Captain Rivera, who had been monitoring communications from Earth, looked up with a grim expression. Dr. Vasquez, we have a problem. Initial reports from Earth indicate that knowledge of the approaching convergence is causing massive social disruption. Some populations are unifying around the challenge, but others are fragmenting into competing factions trying to position themselves as humanity's representatives. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of humanity's evolutionary baggage. Even faced with an extinction-level test of their consciousness, humans were defaulting to the same competitive patterns that had characterized their species for millennia. Dr. Chun, Elena called to your transmission, "What's the status of the catalyst research?" "We've made significant progress translating the technical specifications from your archaeological finds," Dr. Chen replied. "The technology appears to create a planet-wide consciousness network that allows individual awareness to transcend personal limitations. But Elena, the energy requirements are enormous. We would need to harness the entire output of our solar system to power it." Elena felt a chill of realization. That's why the entities are studying our solar system so carefully. They're not just evaluating our consciousness. They're determining whether to provide us with the energy source needed to power the catalyst. The transmission crackled with interference as Dr. Chen's image began to fade. "Elena, we're running out of time. The entities have been detected sending probe signals toward Earth. Whatever decision they're making about humanity, it's happening now." As the transmission cut out, Elena stared at the tactical display, showing the approaching entities. For months to prove that humanity could transcend millions of years of evolutionary programming. For months to demonstrate that they deserved to join whatever community existed beyond the stars. Elena began composing another transmission to Earth, knowing that the next few months would determine whether humanity's story ended in the silence of extinction or continued in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The archaeological expedition that had begun as humanity's greatest achievement was now their final exam, and the grade would be passed or cease to exist. The universe held its breath, waiting for humanity's answer. The final month approached with humanity caught between unprecedented unity and devastating fragmentation. Elena watched from the Prometheus as Earth's governments attempted to coordinate the largest consciousness evolution project in human history, while simultaneously preparing for possibility of complete extinction. Dr. Chen's latest transmission painted a picture of a species at war with itself even in the face of cosmic judgment. "Elena, we've successfully constructed the catalyst network using the specifications from your archaeological findings," she reported. "The quantum consciousness interfaces are online in major population centers across 6 continents. But we're facing massive resistance from groups that refuse to participate in what they're calling forced mental evolution." Elena felt her heart sink. The archaeological evidence had been clear. Civilizations that remained divided during convergence failed the test. Unity of purpose wasn't just helpful for passing the evaluation. It was absolutely essential. What percentage of the global population is connected to the Catalyst network? Elena asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Approximately 63%, Dr. Chen replied. "Not enough. According to your translations, successful convergence requires at least 90% species-wide participation in the consciousness evolution process." Sarah looked up from her ongoing analysis of the alien instruction text. "Elena, I found something that might help. Several of the extinct civilizations mention that the entities conducting convergence provide a final opportunity for species unification, something they call the revelation." Elena leaned forward intently. "What kind of revelation?" "Direct contact," Sarah replied. "The entities reveal themselves and their purpose to the entire population simultaneously, giving the species one final chance to choose unity over division. But Elena, this is also the point where civilizations either transcend or are excised from existence. There's no middle ground. Captain Rivera, who had been monitoring the approach of the cosmic entities, announced grimly, "Dr. Vasquez, the entities have reached the outer solar system. They're taking positions around each planet, and we're detecting massive energy buildups." Elena moved to the main display and watched as the tactical readout showed 17 planet-sized structures positioning themselves throughout the solar system. Each one pulsed with energy signatures that dwarfed the output of Earth's sun, and all of them were clearly focusing their attention on the small blue world that contained humanity's entire civilization. "Elena," Dr. Chen's voice came through with obvious strain. "We're detecting quantum resonance patterns from entities. It's as if they're preparing to initiate direct neural contact with every conscious mind on Earth simultaneously." Elena closed her eyes and thought about everything they had learned during their archaeological expeditions. 7 dead civilizations had faced this moment, and all had failed. Each had been more technologically advanced than humanity, yet none had possessed whatever quality the entities require for transcendence. "Sarah," Elena said quietly, "what exactly do the instruction texts say about the nature of transcendence? What are the entities looking for?" Sarah pulled up her most recent translation analysis. The core requirement appears to be what they call unified consciousness, not just working together, but genuinely experiencing existence as a single entity while maintaining individual awareness. It's a paradox that goes beyond anything human psychology has ever achieved. Elena stared at the approaching entities and felt the weight of species-wide responsibility. "Dr. Chun, initiate global broadcast protocols. I need to address the entire human population." "Elena, are you sure? Once we open planetary communications, there's no going back. Everyone on Earth will hear whatever you say." Elena looked at her team, Sarah, Marcus, James, and Captain Rivera, seeing in their faces the same mixture of terror and determination that she felt in her own heart. They had journeyed to the stars seeking answers about humanity's place in the universe, and now they were about to provide those answers to their entire species. "Patch me through," Elena said. The quantum transmission system engaged, and Elena knew that her voice was now reaching every communication device on Earth simultaneously. She thought about the 7 billion people listening to her words, knowing that what she said in the next few minutes might be the last human communication in history. "Citizens of Earth," Elena began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez. I am speaking to you from the research vessel Prometheus as we return from humanity's first archaeological expedition to the stars. What we discover there changes everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe." Elena paused, gathering her thoughts for what might be the most important speech in human history. Through the quantum link, she could feel the attention of billions of minds focused on her words. "We are not alone in the universe," she continued, "but we are alone among the living. Every other civilization that has ever reached the stars has faced the same test we now face. Some passed and transcended to forms of existence we cannot yet understand. Others failed and were removed from history itself." Elena looked at the display showing the entities positioned throughout the solar system, their immense forms pulsing with patient energy. "In the next few hours, we will make contact with beings that exist beyond our current comprehension. They will offer us a chance to evolve beyond the limitations that have defined our species since we first looked up at the stars. But this evolution requires something we have never achieved as a species: true unity of consciousness." The silence from Earth was absolute. Elena knew that across the planet, humans were grappling with the reality that their survival depended on transcending millions of years of evolutionary programming in a matter of hours. "The choice is before us," Elena concluded. "We can remain divided and face extinction, or we can choose to become something greater than we have ever been. The universe is waiting for our answer." As Elena ended her transmission, the entities throughout the solar system began to pulse with synchronized energy. The revelation was beginning, and humanity's final exam was about to commence. Elena gripped the arms of her chair as reality itself seemed to shimmer around the Prometheus. Whatever happened next would determine whether humanity's story ended in the silence of extinction or began anew among the stars. The universe held its breath, and humanity faced its moment of truth.